What's going on, everyone? We're live here. Today, I'm going to be your sourcing VA for the next couple hours, next 2 hours. So buckle up. It's definitely going to be a long one. Couple things that you need to know. Number one is that there will be a spreadsheet where all of these leads will be sent to. So I'll go ahead and share that in the chat right now. And basically on the spreadsheet, let me go ahead and share it with you. It is just going to be the date that we purchased it, right? And so again, these are leads. So I'm going to pretend I'm your virtual assistant, which just means that I'm going to be feeding you leads and you get to decide if you want to buy them or not. But I'm only going to put books on here that I would actually buy. There'll be the product name. So this will be the name of the book, the link to the Amazon URL. This would be how many I would consider you buy. The ASIN, the cost price, the sales price, the projected profit and ROI from those. So this spreadsheet will be available. It's linked in the description. It's also linked in the comment section if you're here live. So that should be a lot of fun. We got how to put Carter Max out of business. Definitely not. So if you're unfamiliar with Carter, Carter has a service called VA Fastlane, an awesome service to basically pair you with a virtual assistant. And we'll have videos. I'll have videos coming out with Carter a little bit later on, which will be exciting. But today, again, I'm just going to be sourcing book leads, which is going to be really exciting. We'll start over here on BookMine Mini, and then we'll kind of move over to BookMine, and we'll just see how many book leads we can get in this couple-hour period. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I might not do as much talking just because 2 hours is a long time. And also later today at 5 p.m. PST, Victor and I will be starting session 1 of the college book flipping masterclass. And so the college book flipping masterclass is essentially 3 sessions starting again today at 5 p.m. PST. It's invite only to BookMine members that are paid. So you can either be a BookMine member and get that masterclass for free. Otherwise, you can buy it for $297. And I think it's linked in the video description of the most recent live. So I think it was the last live stream. If you're wanting to buy that outright, you can. I'd recommend just being a BookMine member. Even just signing up for a month will make it worth it. But then you'll be able to access all 3 sessions, which is great. Last thing is we do quarterly meetups with all of our BookMine Mini members. And so if you're unfamiliar with BookMine Mini, it's basically 50 free book leads every 2 hours. That's about 600 book leads every day. And again, these aren't just random books. These are books that are undervalued. These are books that our software from BookMine has found. It's a random assortment and a random sample of those books. A number of these books are books that I would highly consider you pick up and purchase, such as this one right here. It's $11.98 all in shipping. And again, I'll probably put that one on the leads list here in a second. But you can sign up for BookMine Mini. It's absolutely free. And you don't even need to keep a subscription because you have the Keep a Graph right here. Of course, I'd recommend having a Keep a subscription. But at the end of the day, all you need is BookMine Mini if you want to get started with online book arbitrage. So with that said, let's start rolling. Let's start looking at some books. Now, we have a lot of books to go through today. So I'm going to go pretty fast because even though we have a couple hours, there is a lot of books to be looking through. So right now what I'm doing is just clicking on links to books that look good to me from first initial impression, and then going from there. Well, obviously we'll be skipping books that are also probably pretty good, but like I said, there's gonna be too many books. So Uncle Sam and You Part 1, this is currently what, 10, 11 bucks. It's a pretty good high school book here. Very, very reliable year after year. And so this is absolutely a book I would recommend picking up. You can see every single July it spikes in price. And that's what also happens to the used offer count, mirrors it. So this is definitely at a pickup price. You may not be able to pick this book up for any cheaper going forward. So I would say this is our first book lead. And I'd be targeting about like 30 bucks on this. So let's go and open this up. Really good sales velocity in July, August, September. I mean, the sales run gets down to like under 100,000. So you could probably pretty easily in this stretch of time, I would say you could probably have up to 10 copies and do quite well with it. But I would probably recommend going wider rather than deeper. So let's see, we got $9.91. Some of those are from FBA sellers, which is fine as well. You could even potentially prioritize them to get them out of the way. But we're looking at $489 plus $399. So $888. And again, I'd probably target like probably like 32 or something like that. So 32 would give you about a 50% ROI. And again, potentially you can go higher than that as well. So that'd be close to about a 50% ROI. Honestly, anything under 10 would be a pretty good deal. And the one thing that you will have to understand is you will have to wait about 7 or 8 months in order to sell that. So it's kind of up to you if you want to do that. But I'd say maybe pick up 3 copies of this, and we're gonna go ahead and put that over on the leads list. So this is your first lead of the day. Let's see if this imports correctly. There we go. And I'm gonna put a comment section over here. So seasonal will sell. Yes. So must wait. How many months is that? 9 months. So whether or not you want to sell is kind of up to you. Let's make sure that all of these have dollar amounts on them. And let's have this be a percentage. So 54% ROI. And let's also center everything. Boom. All right. And then here's the Amazon link for you there as well. So a pretty good high school book there, but you'd have to wait if you want to sell it. All right. We have a 2-volume set here. It's priced pretty cheaply at $22. One thing I don't really like is when books kind of just go down in value and they don't have a sort of ebb and flow pattern, because it kind of entails that potentially it's just losing value over time and that there's a new edition. So honestly, for that reason, I would probably just move on. Now you can see that it's Amazon resale. That's really cheap and there's only a few copies. So I would say that there's definitely potential here that this could go back up in price. It really is going to be determined upon whether or not there's a newer edition of this available or not. So let's see. I just in general don't really like when books kind of go down in value like that. But let's see. Yeah, this is what we looked at, 2023. These came out in 2022, 2021, 2020. Those actually, they're not all the same book though. Pediatric tumors. So potentially you could be looking at the newest edition. Again, I don't really like when books kind of just erode in value like that, but there are a lot of good positive signs. Used offer count is actually lower than it was same time last year. Amazon recently just also went out of stock, which is a good sign. So you can see Amazon just went out of stock right there. So they're no longer in stock. And then what happened is immediately the new price jumped up. So there's still demand for this book. I would say, again, I just don't really like the fact that it's kind of just eroding in price over time. So I'd probably pass on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone flips that for $100, to be honest with you. All right. Archie versus Predator. We have a new price that's really high up there. So this has had some sales in the 13 range, in the 50 range, in the 50 range. Long term, it looks like, yeah, this has sold pretty decently well in the 30 to 40 range, and it's not 13. So I would say this is probably close to about a 50% margin, because the goal would be to sell this for about, I'd say about like 45 to 49. I'd probably put 49.99. So let's see how many copies are available. And I'd probably just say like a single copy. This is a really good sign when you have a bunch of, or not a bunch, but a few copies that are closer, and then all the rest after that shoot back up. So we got 1357. This is definitely an all year round book. So 1756. I would say probably targeting like 49.99 would be the goal. And again, you do have some sales at 58, which is great. And you also have tons of demand back when Amazon used to be in stock at $18, and you had a bunch of demand at double, triple MSRP when they went out of stock. So I'd say that's pretty good as well. Paperback, how many copies of this would we buy? Let's get the offer count. The offer count is pretty low. I mean, it's just not a book that generally has a high offer count. So I would say that you could probably sell 2 copies pretty conservatively within a year. So I'm going to say 2 copies of this. And we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to go ahead and put that to the leads list over here. So let's see if that shows up. We got 2 copies there, and this is going to be at about 97% ROI. So this would be all year round. Slower seller. I'm going to say slow moving, long tail. Okay. These are actually books that I would buy, by the way. So I'm not just like feeding you bad leads. Like, these are actually books that I'd buy. All right. Skills in psychodynamic counseling. So this has been selling recently. It's actually right now brand new for 50. And then currently the lowest price on this is 11. And again, this came right from BookMine. All these books I'm looking at have come from BookMine Mini. We haven't gone to BookMine yet. So a lot of good potential leads here. Now, one thing you do want to be careful about are these two sellers, Awesome Books USA and Bahama Media. They're drop shippers. So if you're gonna buy one if you're gonna buy, don't buy from both because they're drop shipping. I would just buy from probably just Awesome Books USA. So I'd buy that copy and then not buy this copy. But $7.99. And when you do order from these two particular sellers, I would definitely keep a very close eye on those orders and make sure that they do arrive on time and that you got the correct book because sometimes they don't do a very good job of that. Now, for most of the year, the Amazon price has been 38. And the good news is that if Amazon returns to $38, you price a little bit under that, maybe 32, you're still very profitable, 59% ROI. But Amazon has moved its price up to 53. So the ceiling price has gone up, which means we can price probably closer to like 43 to 45. A lot of people ask me, like, how do I know what to price my book at, especially when Amazon's on the listing? And the best answer to that is just use your own, put yourself in the shoes of the customer. If you had needed this book for some reason, what would you do? If you could buy a good copy for 45 or brand new for 53, what would you do? A lot of people would buy it brand new for 53, but some people would buy it for 45. Now, the closer you get to 53, like let's say you're like, I'm going to price my used copy for 52.99. Well, most people would rather pay 1 penny extra and get it brand new. But that's why if the lower you go, if you go 49.99, there's probably some people out there like, yeah, I'll save $3. Certainly, there's going to be a lot more people willing to save, $13 if you do 39.99. So use your common sense. For this, I would say I'd probably target like 45 bucks, and at 45, you're looking insanely profitable. So this is an amazing book. Its use price has never been this low. I don't think ever. And you could probably even see that in the data. Actually, we probably showed that to you on BookMine. Where is it at? Right here. Yeah, do you see how on BookMine we've even told you it's the lowest price ever? So that actually goes into determining this score called the BookMine score. So that positively weights this number. So if this wasn't the lowest price ever, it'd probably be like a score of 5 or something. But it is the lowest price ever, which is pretty crazy to think because this book has been out for 3,200 days. 3,200 divided by 365. It's been out for 8.7 years and it's never been cheaper than it's been today. So if that doesn't tell you it's not an amazing deal, I don't know what does. But that's a paperback. I would definitely buy that book. Unfortunately, there's only one copy available, but there you go. 150% ROI. I would definitely jump on that book. All right. Let's keep going. The Warren guitar songbooks. So a very niche subject matter. What I'm looking at here is what is, it's a longer tail book. What is kind of its long-term historical value? And so if we look at the last 3 years, most of the sales rank drops happen when the lowest price is 65 on the low end up to about 110. So I would say you have a selling range between like 60 on the low end to 110 as the intrinsic value of this book. So in other words, it holds value. It's currently sitting right here at about 40 bucks. So what's all in? The all in for that book was $44.94. So again, you're looking at a book that on the low end is probably going to sell for 60, on the high end sell for 110. You can pick it up for about 45 bucks. So obviously, if you sell for 60, you're not going to be profitable. If you sell for 110, you will absolutely be profitable. So what that means is you're probably going to want to, if you do buy this book, which I do believe it is a good lead, you'd probably want to price somewhere on the upper end of here. So I would say probably like 80 on the low end. And I wouldn't even go up to 110. I'd go like 99, be a little bit conservative, something like that. So this book looks pretty good. It's a very niche book. You also notice it doesn't have very many offers available. Only has actually 3 copies available on the market. And a good rule of thumb here for long tail books is to ask yourself, if I were to have owned this book in any other year, could I have sold it profitably? And if the answer to that is yes, then more than likely you got a great book. So for example, could I have sold this book profitably if I bought it at this price, which is 45 bucks in 2021? So you could click and drag on Keepa and you could look at 2021. You're like, okay, there's a sales rank drop there for 100. Okay, yes. 100, yes. 76, 80, 120. So yeah, I could have done that. What about if I own this book in 2019? Could I have sold this book profitably at the current purchase price? So you have 4 or 5 sells and drops at 75, a couple there at 70. So yes, you could have sold it profitably. So it's a good rule of thumb. If you could have sold it profitably in pretty much every other year, then it means that you're more than likely, got a good deal here, and that you're looking pretty there. So what I would say is $39.95 is a very good copy, and then it goes up to 70. So again, a very good sign when you see a lower offer. Oh, I didn't mean to be that lower offer, and then it goes much higher and then much higher, right? The gap between these two is huge, right? It's like $30 difference, and so very good copy coming from the Prescott Public Library Friends. Fun fact here: very few people will know this because not everyone's gonna watch this stream. I was actually born in Prescott, Arizona, so my library from where I was born representing. So well done there. But $39.95 plus $4.99 shipping. You're going to spend more money on this book, but again, it's a more valuable book. I'd price this at $99.99. Look for about a $30 profit, and I would say min price like 80, still making about 30% ROI. There are sales up to 109, so you could potentially get close to 100%. You can see that the ceiling price for a new copy is very high. It's $370. I would doubt there's even an FBA seller, right? No FBA seller on it, which is amazing. And so what I would do is I would come in right under this offer and be $99.99 when the buy box. Again, you would be buying this copy, so this copy will no longer even be there. And it is possible that this person's price actually goes back up because maybe their repricer, is going down because of this lower offer. So I would target $99.99. It's a more conservative selling price. And in the last year, you've had 10, 15 sales and drops. So I would still I'd consider like a medium tail book, like within 6 months, I would say is a pretty good bet. And we're going to go ahead and put this to the leads list right there. And so we're going to say that this one is, what did I say? I had a comment that I wanted to make about that. Oh, no FBA sellers. FBA sellers. So that's huge right there. Medium long tail. All right, let's keep it rolling. Again, this is all on BookMine Mini, which is awesome. So if you're not on BookMine Mini, make sure you sign up for BookMine Mini because there are some deals on BookMine Mini right now. This is an interesting one. Let's keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. 34. Let's get that. Maryland. Let's keep it rolling. All right, so we only look to page number 1. Dr. Seuss book. All right. So print reading, these print reading books do actually really well for me personally. You can see it is a seasonal book, and you can tell that by the sales rank getting low in both January, like this, and in August, September. There aren't really what I would consider bowls. A bowl is kind of what I've drawn, but there's I would call it a cluster of sales. The used price right now of this book is now down to, where is it at? $19.89 all in shipping. Now the new price is about 62, so there's definitely margin to be had there. This book was selling upwards of 50 to 60 bucks in January. Used offer count on this looks great. You can see that the used offer count today is right around 15. It was right around 15 last year, which is great. Meaning going into the season, it's very likely we'll see the same pattern. Actually the current used price is what the used price was at the same time last year. Now, Amazon's price being a little bit lower just does mean that there's a lower ceiling for the new price, but I still think that this book is going to do quite well. So, couple of really important things I haven't gone over. Make sure you can sell the book. So make sure within Amazon Seller Central, like you have the ability to sell it, and then make sure you use the bookstring counter for calculator as well. All right, and so we have an offer for, well, it was $19.89, so it looks like that offer's gone. So more than likely somebody has just recently bought that. Now it's at like 25 bucks. So 25 into, I would target like $59.99. Still pretty decent, honestly. Looking at $12 profit, about a 50% ROI. I'd say pretty decent as well. So for 25, it's actually like 26. Getting close to, this would be like 26 bucks. 44% ROI. But yeah, $59.99. Again, potentially could sell for more than that. The buy box price has been much higher than that in the past. up until recently, the buy box was up at $59.99 as well. So we're gonna go ahead and put that on the leads list as well. And let's keep moving on. This one. All right. And again, you don't have to buy any of these, right? These are just books that I would buy. So, all right, let's go to Good Night, Lahaina Town. So this is a book about Lahaina, I think, or Lahaina. I could be wrong. I'm thinking this is a book about Hawaii. Great thing is you don't need to know anything. Yeah, there it is about Hawaii. You don't need to know anything about the book to sell it. You just need to be a bookseller. All right. So it's interesting to me that a children's book like this could sell for so much because it is at least selling brand new for 30 there. Sells rank drop at 40. It dropped there at 33. You can go back to 2023. It was easily selling for 15. Plenty of sales, brand new for 32. It's a really cheap book. It's only like $2. Pretty much every time that there has been stock, it's gone back out of stock. So there's definitely demand for this book. I would not target anything above $29.99 though, because that's what the new price is, and that's what it looks like to have been able to sell at. But this book is so cheap that you can come in at a pretty low price, and you don't have to sell for much because you'd be buying this for like $265. $265 plus $3.99. You'd be all in for $664. Again, 30 is the new price, but that doesn't include shipping, so it's technically 34. It's also not FBA seller. I would probably come in at honestly, like $22.99, maybe like $23.99 actually. So you'd be looking at close to 100% ROI, and you could probably buy a couple copies. I probably wouldn't buy more than 2 copies of this book. It is, I would consider, a medium long tail book. So it's kind of up to you if you're wanting to go after that. And there's actually only 2 copies available. So I'd say 1 to 2 copies, probably just 1 copy just to test it. But this is a board book. And yeah, board books, kids' books, they can sell quite well. It's a very niche book. So there you go. So this is a children's book. That's 1 copy, but you could probably buy multiple copies, honestly. All right. If we got any questions here. I have to do something else, but I'll watch this later. Looking forward to watching. Awesome, man. Glad that it's you're finding value out of it. All right, we got Merlin, The Labyrinth of Gredith. So what I noticed about this book is a pretty large increase in used offer count. I also noticed this book often drops in price a lot, down to 17, and then kind of recovers pretty much immediately. So what I don't like is that you could have owned this book between 2015 and 2020, and it was basically a worthless book. It was like 70, 80 cents. So I'm going to pass on that. We have a Dr. Seuss book. Looks like it has sold upwards of 30. It was recently selling for about $10, but went up to 100, didn't sell. It's back down to 8. There's really not that many offers on it. What I would do is, again, look long term. What can this book sell for? It looks like it potentially could sell for upwards of $50, $60, but probably closer to 25 to 30. But the thing is, the spread on this, I do see sales upwards of 100 multiple times, and that's pretty exciting. It's also a Dr. Seuss book, which, as we know, Dr. Seuss is very popular. Also, the used offer count is basically 0 right now, and you've had sales at a higher price with many more offers on the listing. So at this cheaper of a price, I'd definitely be interested in. Make sure you can sell it though. Look how crazy these buy boxes are. $7 plus $4 shipping, or $97. It's crazy for a good copy. So again, use common sense. No one's going to pay $90 to get a good copy when they can buy it for $7. But I would target, what's the all-in price on this? $787 plus $399 shipping. $1186. I would probably target like $29.99. You'd be looking at a pretty decent profit. Potentially could even sell for more than that, but that's what I would say for this book. I have actually bought it before. More than likely, I did sell it already, and so even if I looked at the order page, I wouldn't be able to see it because it's technically in the archived orders at this point. But yeah, I would say anywhere between 29 to 39. Honestly, I bought it in July 7th of 2023, so that would have been I would have bought it on this dip right here. So I had seen a recent sell at 100, and then there's plenty of sells in the high 30s. So I probably sold it for like 35 to 38 is what I'd bet. But I'd probably conservatively put 29.99. I'd probably put a max price of like 39.99. So pretty decent there. So that's the leads list. Again, all this just coming from BookMine Mini. All right, let's see if there's anything else before we kind of head off over to BookMine. That's actually only the first page of BookMine Mini, so that looks pretty good there. Okay, Gary's got a good point here. So he says Lahaina is the town that burned down on Maui, so maybe that will make this book more attractive. Yeah, that's a good point there, Gary. All right, let's get this one off. Go to the top. Jedi Quest. So books like these I'm not super interested in. Now, so first let me explain why BookMine found it. You look over the last 6 months and you look at the sales range drops, they've occurred at 28, 40, 40, 40, 40. So you've got sells at 40, sells at 40, sells at 38, sells at 35, and then now this book is what? $10. So that's why BookMine has found it, because all the sales have been higher than that. But what I don't like is when you look at this stretch from here to here, the price of the book for 6 months was pretty cheap. I mean, it was actually cheaper than we can buy the book for now. What would make this book way more attractive to me is if this used price were consistently that high in the 40 to 50 range with sales the whole year, because that would indicate the book actually holds value long term. Now, when you look at this book long term, you can see that for a good majority of the time, it's basically very inexpensive. So I tend to stay away from these books, not because you couldn't flip them profitably, but because I don't believe it has or holds an intrinsic value in the 40s. It just kind of has happened to sell at that price. So those are books that I'd pass. But that's why BookMine found it, is because, again, it is undervalued relative to what it's most recently been selling for, which honestly, usually what it's most recently been selling for is the most important data anyways. But I would pass on it. There's too many good books to not, to buy that book. Okay, so discipleship, this just dropped from 76 down to 30. Looks like an amazing deal. Interestingly, there has been a new price, about $19. Then it went out of stock here for about a year. And people who've been buying this have been paying $100 for brand new. I would imagine that they're willing to pay $76 for it in used condition. And again, it's sort of a medium long tail book. You have 3 copies. I definitely want to buy more than 1 copy of this, just because it doesn't sell a ton, and also Amazon is on the listing. So what I would say for a book like this is just buy a single copy. You'd be all in it for 30, 66 plus 397, 34. So $100 is what you can buy for brand new. I'd probably target like $75, 18% ROI, and you'd be looking at about a 52% ROI. But again, I would only be looking at one of this. And that's just because Amazon is in stock with quite a few copies available. And so a lot of people will be buying it from Amazon rather than the used copies. So that's what I would do for that book. But a pretty crazy drop there. Keeping in balance. There's tons of seasonal books related to this Walking with Purpose book. So you could totally find a whole rabbit hole of these books that you could just absolutely crush from year to year. And let me show you how predictable this pattern is. If you go back to 2019, which, yes, I was flipping books back in 2019. I started flipping books back in 2015, but look at this pattern. And so every year happens at the same time, which is August. Okay. So obviously August has passed already, but what do you predict is going to happen next August? Probably the same thing, right? So what we're looking at is this at a pickup price that's cheap enough? So it's right now at 27. It's actually 31 all in shipping. Potentially between February, March, and April, you could pick it up for close to 22. So this is a great book to track for, let's say, 23 or less. And then when you get notified of this book back in February, March, April, a book that you're going to definitely want to buy. An amazing book. It actually went out of stock in new condition in middle of September. And so the reason why that's so powerful is because here on September 16th, it looks like the lowest sales rank of 25,000. So when the book was most popular, its new price was $100. So that means people were definitely, if you had copies available, you could have sold this upwards of $100, making amazing profit on this book. Kind of same thing in August of the year before. Amazon or the new price did go out of stock as well. So a great book to track, an amazing book. And like I said, scroll down, you'll see a bunch of other similar books like that that say frequently bought together. And so you're definitely going to want to hover over those books as well. So here's another book, and there's a bunch of them, right? So, and they're all very similar. They have that same typical pattern. So you're definitely going to want to kind of go down the rabbit hole and find all these books because they're just absolutely amazing. Make sure you can sell it. This one potentially I can't sell. Potentially not this one, but sometimes there's kind of an error with seller ramp and talking to Amazon. So I think I actually can sell those, but great books there. All right, let's see. You have another pretty good high school book here, third edition. Relax into Stretch. All right, let's take a look at this one. Relax into Stretch. Instant flexibility through mastering muscle tension. I'm actually tracking this. This has sold upwards of 70 to 80, and currently it's sitting down here at about 28 bucks. So it does have periods of time where it's been cheaper as well. But you can see long term, this book is just a really sort of volatile book. It holds a lot of value, but its price range is pretty volatile. It can go up and down quite a bit. So let's see what we got here. 28.75 is what we could pick this up for. And I would say you could probably sell this for 60 to 70 bucks, honestly. It just is going to depend when you have one of these dips in used offer count, right? When a lot of people start selling it, right? Because you can see the price goes up at 80 or 90 there pretty easy. Price can go up here to over 100 pretty easily. So it'd be just positioning your book at a good price point and not really having a tight min and max price so that you're not really competing with all the other FBA sellers. Because right now you do have a bunch of people at 28, 40, 60, but honestly, I'd probably be in that range of wanting to be at like 70, 75. So 28, 76, I'd say like 69.99 even. Oh, which is great. I mean, this must be a pretty light book. It's only 12 ounces. So you actually could be even at like 59.99. This becomes a much better book. So I'd probably target 59.99 just because you could sell more copies at that price. And I'd pick up every copy that's 28 bucks. So it looks like there's like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'd pick up all 7 copies of that and put that on the leads list. All right. Now, again, at the time of recording, this is how many copies we could have purchased at this purchase price. More than likely, what will happen is over the next day, 2 days, week, most of these will no longer be at those prices. They'll be getting closer to these prices because these are all undervalued books. So if you're watching this in the future, a great way to see or check whether or not I know what I'm talking about is come back in a month or 2 months, and I bet you the majority of these are going to be much closer to this than they will be to this. So let's keep it rolling. All right, BookMine Mini. And right now we're only on BookMine Mini, which is awesome. All right, 19. This one. Tools of learning. Things your child needs to know. 19 to 40. BookMine Mini is just a really good teaching tool for you as well because you'll be able to get 50 book leads every 2 hours, right? So you'll be able to look at tons of books and look at their keeper graphs. All right, let's take a look. So we have genetics and genomics. Let's see. It's likely to be counterfeit or not. So it says unlikely. That's good. This is currently priced here at, I want to say like 22 bucks. Last January sell up in the 45 range. So this is one of those books that you'd probably have to exploit the buy box a little bit in order to make a decent profit, because otherwise you'd be targeting probably like 45 bucks. But if you're buying at 20, some for 45, you're looking at probably like a $5 to $7 profit. So yeah, you'd have to exploit the buy box in that one. Lost Tools of Writing. This is $12. I don't think it's going to get any cheaper. This went up into the 30s and 40s. So yet again, another amazing book. Let's get rid of the new price here, and let's get rid of that crazy price there. All right. So once again, BookMine Mini coming through for the win. And again, BookMine is just way more books than BookMine Mini. But so all these books show up on BookMine as well. But this is the book's trajectory over the last 6 years. So hopefully you can see that every year there is a spike at the same time in used price. And that happens to also coincide with a incredible sales rank bowl, as I call it. And that bowl is this right here. Well, actually, let me do it like this. Sales rank bowl there, sales rank bowl, sales rank bowl. It looks like an actual, like a cereal bowl, 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 bowl. The sales rank is actually only continuing to get better here. You also notice as I continue to draw and have fun with this, that every time the used offer count goes down, and the reason for that, right, is because a bunch of people are buying the book, and as a result, the used price goes up, sales rank goes down. It all connects, right? It all talks to each other. If the book is selling a ton, it means the sales rank number is becoming much lower because it's more popular. And if all the people on the listing are selling out, the only people left over are the people who are priced really high, which is why the used price spikes. And so all we're doing here is waiting for that used price to come up. So the question is, if we look at it where we're at today, right around 18 used offer count, we were right around that last time. So we still have a long ways to go until August, but the goal is to sell in this range, 35 to $40, and you're able to pick this up for about 1270. Now, again, the sales rank of this gets sub 10,000 for pretty much all of August. So if I were to guess how many times this book is selling between here and here in total, I would say easily a few thousand copies. Easily a few thousand copies of this book sold between there and there, easily, without question. So if you came in with like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 copies of this, even if you had 100 copies of this, you could potentially sell all of them in a single day. So picking up as many copies of this as you can. Again, the important part is at the right price point is important though, because again, you're going to be targeting probably $39.99. So if you target $39.99, you're really not wanting to probably, you have to figure out what your minimum ROI is, but already at $12.73 plus $3.99 shipping, you're at $16.72. So you're already at a 52% ROI, which is great. $9 profit per copy. And so if you could pick up like 20, 30, 40, 50 copies of this, that'd be great. At the same time, remember, you're only using BookMine Mini, it means that you don't have a bunch of capital. So I would go wide rather than deep. Maybe buy 1 copy, 2 copies, 3 copies at most, because you kind of want to spread out your risk. And you have a ton of risk buying multiple copies of the book if you don't have very much capital to spend on books. But for here, there's only 2 copies available. So we'll go ahead and put quantity 2. We'll go ahead and put that on the leads list there for you. This is, again, a book that I would track, and I am actually tracking it for under $17. So I actually recently would have gotten a notification for this. That's what you see here with this sort of gray line drop right here that happened there. This is when my tracker got notified. And that was awesome. Again, I like to be conservative with my pricing. I'd say $39.99 is a very conservative price. This book did get up to the lowest use price being in the 60s with a great sales rank. The buy box often was in the 40s as well. But I like to be conservative for all of you out there because I really care about you guys. Don't want you to lose money. So the more conservative you can be, the better this is going to turn out, right? And so even though you might be looking at these ROIs and go, 53, 43, it could be very likely that this actually turns into an 80%. This turns into a 75%. This turns into 110%. Like, it's very possible, right? So 2 copies of this. I'm going to say track this book and buy a ton of copies under $15. Again, if you can. What was it? Which one was it wasn't that book. Following Jesus book. No, not that one. Is it this one? Oh, we didn't even add it to the spreadsheet. That's okay. There's tons of books, but there is that one book that I wanted you guys to go down the rabbit hole. All right. 47, 35. All right. Psychotherapy. This was selling in the hundreds. It's now in the 40s. Now, for a book that has such a good sales rank like this, I would bet the chances of this having either being restricted or likely to be counterfeit or higher. So it's a good rule of thumb whenever you see books that have really, really, really low sales ranks, even throughout the entire year, definitely run those to the counterfeit checker. High likely to be counterfeit. So I would pass on that book. All right. So we got through the end of BookMine Mini, which is great. Let me refresh that because it's possible that it could have updated in the time since we've started sourcing. It updates every 2 hours, and it did update. Look at that. That's awesome. So it literally has updated since we started sourcing. So we have a whole new set of 50 books to look at. Again, just on BookMine Mini right now, which is awesome. All right. So this one's at $15, which is not bad, but it looks like it normally sells in the upper 20s up to the mid 30s, but doesn't sell a ton. Not going to be enough margin. Let's look at this one. This one says amazing. It's shade gold. Let's look at this one as well. $12. 13, 7 to 40, long tail. This looks interesting. All right, let's look at a couple of these. We have the Trader's Hand. This has had recent sales around 45 to 50. Pretty much all year it's been at 14. It's at 15 now. So we're gonna pass on this. Crazy though, this book has been listed for high prices. The buy box price has been like up to $1,000, which is kind of crazy. Obviously not realistic, but it does happen where the buy box can go kind of crazy. This designing and managing a research project. So it's really cheap. It's only $3. It has sold in the $30 to $40 range. It also has been cheaper before. We could have picked it up. For this book, I look long term historically. And when you look at this book long term historically, it just looks like it really is a pretty solid book, 30 to 40 bucks. It just happens to be cheaper right now. I'm going to assume this came out a while ago. This came out in 2018. Yeah. So it's, what is that, 7 years old already? Doesn't appear that there's a new edition of this available. It doesn't really sell enough for this to be probably a counterfeited book, but you should still check it anyways. And what's the buy box? Was that 32 recently? Let's see if there's any FBA sellers on this listing. So we got a couple at 12, one at 30, and then one at 89. So it's a pretty cheap book. I would target like $39.99 on it, honestly. Again, long-term historically, it does quite well, selling in the 30 to 40 range. And you can pick this up for a total of $12.61. Now you'll notice that this copy and this copy, and this copy as well, they're the same price, but this one comes from an Amazon, or this one comes from Amazon.com. So it's FBA. This one comes from the actual bookseller themselves. So I would prioritize the FBA offers because you get the FBA offers out of there. Just make sure that if you are going to buy an FBA offer, that you aren't using your Prime benefits. If you do have a Prime subscription, if you have a customer account with a Prime membership, then just sign up for a business account that doesn't have Prime on it. And whenever you need to buy FBA offers, hop on over to the non-Prime business account, get your cart value over 35 bucks. You'll get free shipping. It'll be standard shipping, but then you can still buy the book and not technically exploit TOS. So doesn't matter in most cases. 90+% of the time we're buying MF sellers, not FBA sellers. So should be okay. Now, again, there are 3 copies available. I'd probably only buy a single copy of this, but I do think that this book's price is going to go back up. And so I would say $12.61 is what you'd be buying at. I would target like 35 bucks. And you could potentially sell it for 45, honestly. But I'd say it's a good lead as well. Kind of more of a longer tail college textbook flip, but one that's been pretty solid. Let's see if that shows up there. All right, we're good there. This was a kind of a crazy book, Super Wings. It's a super reading collection, and it's 5 stories. I would just say that, even though it is very valuable, you just got to make sure that what you're getting is what is promised there. So you're gonna need 5 copies. More than likely, you're definitely gonna want it in this case that it comes in, which, unless the seller explicitly states that that's what you're getting, the chances of you getting it are probably pretty low. So unless it says comes with the actual box with all the books, I wouldn't bother with it. But it is looks to be a pretty great deal though if you could pick it up. You could go over to eBay, and so, for example, this is what you're wanting to buy. Now, personally, I would only want to, buy the copy on eBay if I already had purchased a copy on Amazon and I have an invoice for it. But if, for example, you could buy this copy and you knew for a fact that you were getting this, then yeah, that'd be great because you'd be all in this for 33.79 plus 3.99 shipping. You'd be all in it for 37. The most recent sales were in the 80s, a lot in the 60s. It's just a book that just doesn't have a ton of offers on it. So I would probably price it somewhere around like 69.99. And so even at 69.99, it really might not be worth your time. I mean, 34% ROI is still pretty solid, but and again, you could potentially sell for more, but I'm not going to add that one to the list just because if you buy it on Amazon, the chances that you're going to get it, um, with the full case is just probably unlikely. Joy of Cooking is a great book. Like Teacher's Editions book. So again, actually this is on BookMine. Sorry, we're supposed to be on BookMine Mini. Well, we'll take those. We'll look at those 3 books that were on BookMine as well. But this one, um, that one, Teacher's Manual. Some of these that I'm passing will end up actually being decent flips, but you only have so much time, right? So you have to kind of be picky, choosy. All right, so we have clearly a very good high school book. So you can see going there June, July, August, September. Sales rank is amazing on this book. And you can see that I had opportunities to pick this up back in January for right around $8, and this went all the way up to 40. So 34 at the lowest price, 45 at the buy box, 55 at the buy box price. So a very, very profitable book. And you can pick it up right now for about, what is that, 11, $12. So I would say for this particular book, let's see if we can again establish a pattern long term. Go back multiple years, same pattern year after year. For this high school book, used price goes down, it goes back up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. Now this last year you had a pretty high offer count, but it still almost went down to 0, and it still did very well. And even though again you should make all your purchasing decisions based upon the lowest use price, it's also a very good sign that the buy box price had its own mountain as well. This is called the prime gap or the prime bump, meaning selling for what, $50 is what the prime offers were selling for, and the lowest use price was maybe like 35. So this had like a $15 prime bump, which in a period of insane demand is very likely to happen. There are people that need this book very quickly. You can see just at the used offer count, right? We were up here at about 120 people is what we had. And then by the end of it, we got down to about 25. So if let's just do some basic math and say that the difference between these values is approximately 100, you had at least 100 used offers disappear from the market, and multiple people probably have multiple copies. So I would say a realistic, a very conservative bet is 100 copies to 250 copies is probably what has sold in that period of time. So of the potentially up to 250 people, how many of them are willing to pay for this prime bump? I would say probably a large percentage of them. And the reason is because most customers are prime customers and they want prime products. So I'd say probably at least half, if not more. So even though you can definitely win the buy box and exploit the prime gap, I would say it's more conservative to be looking at the lowest use price. And if you base everything off of the lowest use price rather than that buy box price, you're just going to have a much more solid business. So yes, I would definitely be buying copies of this for $12.36. I'd be targeting, probably like $37.99. And I would be buying literally as many copies as you can, especially because the offer count on this is pretty good. So let's see how many copies you could potentially buy of this. 1, 2, 3. You could potentially buy up to 20 copies. So I wouldn't say buy that many copies, especially again if you're kind of newer to this. I'd say maybe like 4 or 5 copies of this. And one thing is, you still have time. You have January, February, March, April, where this book could get cheaper. So for a book like this, you could pretty easily have 20, 30 copies in stock. And so you might pick up 5 now, 10 or 15 later on down if it ever gets cheaper. But I'm just going to say 5, and we're going to add that to the leads list there. Pretty good book here. So again, this is going to be a high school book. Sell in August. So you're going to have to wait for that. So definitely got some good questions here. Just curious, does BookMine Mini update a specific time, or do I continue to log in at random times to see if there is an update? That's a really good question. In order to make it as fair for everyone as possible, we have it update within the 2 hours kind of randomly. So we do that so no one can just like camp it and like, okay, it's boom, it's 10:51. Okay, everything's new, right? Because we want everyone. The whole purpose of BookMine Mini is to give back to the community, to give people great leads. So we kind of have it just randomly do that. Now, BookMine updates every 30 minutes. It's 5 to 6,000 books. Even that, we also have some randomization just so that it's fair for all the users. But unfortunately, not. What is this channel about? It's about book flipping, man. So we buy books on Amazon, flip them back on Amazon for a profit. Christian says, are they prioritizing FBM again? It appears that FBM is prioritized for the moment, which has happened twice in the past and then recorrected itself. So again, what I think long term is Amazon is testing what will eventually be permanent changes to the buy box. I'm thinking my bet all along has been probably 2 used buy boxes for FBM and 1 for FBA is my guess. But I'm still buying books according to the lowest used price, which is the black line, meaning I'm buying books that are undervalued, meaning, yeah, it sucks if the FBA buy box goes away, but I also don't need it to be profitable. So, and someone could say, well, yeah, Joji, this book, it's, $12 right now in the buy box. Actually, it is an FBA seller winning it. But again, the plan for this book is not to sell it till July, August for 35, when the lowest price is not 12, it's 35. So that's the game plan with that book. All right. We have another book that's literally just like it. This one is even crazier. So let's look at the last few years here. This book, this is an amazing book. This one sells a lot less than the other one does, but it's pretty evident what happens with this book. It goes up and down in price. Pretty crazy. So this book right now is what, $15? It was selling at the lowest price, $50 to $60 last year. Buy box price was up into the 80s. Again, there is possibility of you picking this book up cheaper, maybe a little bit cheaper in the future. Probably, honestly, not that much cheaper in the future. So this is a great price point to be at. And right now you've got multiple copies. I'd say anything under 20 is a home run. So you got 1, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 copies under 20. So I'm just gonna say $20. I'm gonna say $55. You're looking at about a $14 profit per book. I would consider this a home run book, an amazing high school book. And so personally, I would buy all those copies today, right now. I would drop $100 and get all 7 of those. I think there's 7. How many were there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Again, when you look at the sales rank, particularly in August, you can see it gets down sub 25,000, and it's basically for the whole month it's under 100,000. So it's selling multiple times per day pretty easily. 7 copies. I could sell all 7 copies in May pretty easily, especially if I'm targeting let's say $55. I could very well sell them before it's even July or August. And again, it's conservative. It's potentially you could be selling this in the $75 range, which is obviously way more profitable. But again, we're going to be err on the side of caution rather than kind of expect those returns because it's not guaranteed, obviously. Yeah, another book that looks pretty interesting here. I don't again like how it's kind of eroding in price over time rather than having a sort of ebb and flowy sort of predictable pattern. We'll pass on that. You can see that's also prominent in this book here. So it doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean that I shouldn't buy the book. It's just that we have limited time, so we need to look at as many books as we can because we're not going to have enough capital to buy the books anyways, and all the books are going to update before we have more time to look at the books anyways. So this one looks pretty decent. You can buy it for $10 all in shipping. Looks like it sells in the 30 range, kind of a medium tail, long tail book. So we'll pass on that one, but still a good book. Dork Diaries. I don't know if it's a singular book, but it looks like there's a bunch of books listed there in the image. So if it is a singular book, this is an amazing deal for this book. But if it's multiple books, then it's not. So I'm just going to kind of move on from that one. Okay, this X-Men book looks pretty good. So let's go from there. All right. All New X-Men. So this has sold multiple times between 40 and 50. The most recent sell looks like around 25, and this has been kind of eroding in price. Long term, what I would say is if you look over the last 3 years, this book has had multiple sales in the 50 to 60 range. So the use to offer count of this book isn't very high relative to where it has been selling at. So for example, if the offer count is 9 today and it's priced at $9, but at some point in time it was also 9 and it had a sell at 50 and it's had multiple sells in the 40s, I say that this is massively undervalued. Again, I'd consider it a medium to a long tail book. And you have what, one, two, three, four, 5 copies available. So again, I would consider it a medium to long tail book. But again, when you look at this book long term historically, it's pretty much always sold for 40 to $50, sometimes much more than that. Yes, Amazon was in stock for brand new for $23 back in 2016 to 2019, but they haven't been on the listing in 6 or 7 years. The collectible price has been well above, it's been in the $100 range. So what I'm saying is this is an amazing book for me. I would buy all these copies. Amazing book, long tail book, because I think intrinsic value is between 40 to $50 on this book. It looks like it's a graphic novel. Now, at the same time, it's not a fast mover, right? There's maybe 10, 15 sales ring drops in a year. So on average, it's selling like every month, maybe. So it's not like if you buy all 5 copies, they're all going to sell tomorrow, right? So you have to understand that if you buy 5 or 6 copies, this is like a long tail game. And so maybe you send 2 copies to FBA, you send 3 copies to your house, let them sit on the shelf. When the 2 FBA copies sell, go ahead and replenish it. But I'd buy all those copies. So $873, I would target, because I have a bunch of copies, I would target a cheaper price at like $39.99, even though you could probably get up to 50. But again, you have more volume that you have to move. And I would buy all of them. So let's see how many copies there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 copies available. So I'd buy all 5 of those. And this is a really cheap book. I mean, you'd be in it for like $45, right? And potentially you can sell 1 copy for $45. So an amazing deal there. And we're going to say slower seller. Be patient. Likely will sell all copies within 12 to 18 months. Okay, so if you're not willing to wait that long, then don't buy the book. For me, I am, because again, I'll send 2 copies to FBA. More than likely, they'll sell within 6 months. I'll put the other 3 copies on a shelf. I don't mind letting $8 sit there for potentially 165% gain. So amazing book for me there. All right, let's continue this to The Art of Poetry. So it's a teacher's edition. I really like flipping teacher's edition books. You can see that there really just aren't very many offers of this particular teacher's edition. It looks like it generally sells between 20 to $35, and so it's 11. So I would say it's just not quite undervalued enough to want to buy it. We got The Joy of Cooking, a very popular book, currently priced right around $12. Has sold in the 30s and 40s. Again, one of these books that when the buy box is normal, when there's that prime gap, you can pretty easily sell it for a pretty decent price. But again, this particular book, you're probably gonna want to pick it up when it's cheaper. So if you can pick this book up for like under $8, yeah, I'd probably buy as many copies as you could, because even selling them at like 30 is gonna be a great pickup, but it's just a little bit too expensive. So we'll pass. You have this business management book. It's a global edition. You can sell global edition books as long as that's what the title says and that's what the image shows. This has been selling for 45. It just dropped down to 12 plus shipping. So over the last 2,000 days, it's never been cheaper than this, which is why it showed up on BookMine. I mean, look how crazy that chart is. It's always been $40 plus, except for today. It's $12.41. So let's see. It's still sitting there from World of Books. There's probably a couple copies available. We got 2 copies from Books Run, 1 copy from World of Books. So overall, you have 3 copies available. You do have a ceiling FBA price at 51, and so you're buying at 1638. Again, I would consider a medium to long tail sort of college book, and so I probably even wouldn't buy all 3 copies. I'd probably just buy 1 copy. I'd probably buy this copy, $12.41 plus shipping, because these other 2 copies will then probably jump back up in price to match this price. It's a longer tail book. Again, Amazon sometimes on the listing. There's an FBA new price on the listing, so there's competition. I wouldn't be targeting at 51. You'd have to be cheaper than that, probably like 43 or something like that. You're looking at about a 52% return. I'd only buy a single copy of this. So get that up. Just buy one copy. I'd say max. All right, how long we've been going for about like an hour now. So what do we potentially at profit? Potentially $187 profit. I would say pretty conservatively. And then also it doesn't count the multiplier here. So this is actually per copy. So like for example, $14 times 7. So it's actually much more than potentially $187 in profit. Does it give us an average here? Average of about 74%. Again, being pretty conservative. So let's continue. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. All right, so that was BookMine Mini. I mean, lots of great books there. Make sure you sign up for BookMine Mini. It's pretty easy to do that if you haven't. You don't even need to keep a subscription. You just go down to pricing. So you go to bookmine.co, you go to pricing, scroll down, go to BookMine Mini, sign up. And also, we do quarterly BookMine meetups with myself and Victor, and we just kind of teach a concept. We just recently had our quarterly meetup a couple of days ago, and we talked about the roadmap to 50K in revenue using our free tool, BookMine Mini, which is awesome. All right, so BookMine Mini, let's set that over here. Let's go to BookMine. All right, I'm gonna go and refresh BookMine because it's been sitting here for about an hour now. All right, let's take a look at some deals. All right, I'm gonna go fast. Let's go fast, just because everyone wants deals, and then also the faster you go, potentially the better the deals that you'll find. By no means are any of these books bad. I am just looking at what catches my eye, right? I mean, I have 4,300 books I need to get through, so and all these books are undervalued to some degree. So it's kind of more so picking what it is that you want to buy rather than is there anything good. It's more of like what's good enough for me. So right now I'm just opening up some Keepa listings or some books that are interesting to me. So I'll probably go through a couple more pages of books. I haven't done any filtering. I just kind of opened up BookMine just to see what it looked like. And I'm just going from there. Hmm. All right. We got Ring of Hell 33. So pretty solid. This book is selling between 30 to 40, sometimes up to 50 or 60, just depending on the offer count. It's currently priced at 20, so it's never been that cheap before, but I would say probably targeting like upper 30s to 40s is the goal. And so there's not going to be a ton of margin there. There is margin, but not a ton of margin. Bling. For whatever reason, you can see how this book became very popular November 16th for some reason. Sales rank went from 3 million down to 20,000. And the offer count went from 36 down to 6. So a lot of people would incorrectly think that this is an IP complaint because all the used offers and the new offers got kicked off. But when you actually do other, further research, you see that no, the sales rank went from 3 million to 23,000. The only way a book is going to improve in sales velocity that fast is if it's actually selling. So that's definitely not an IP complaint. But you can see that the used offer counts are recovering. The used price is going down as a result, and it looks to probably be returning back to where it was. So I'm going to pass. Mechanisms and mechanical devices. So it's kind of intriguing that potentially had a couple sales that are really high. Interestingly, in November of 2024, the sales rank of this book got really low and the used price shot up. But it is that time in November. There's only a couple sales rank drops and the new price is pretty low. So that. Okay, we have Welcoming the Art of Living. So this one definitely looks to be pretty decent here. Pretty good sales rank drops right around 37. Current price of this is about $7 plus shipping. So I would say probably targeting like $39.99 of this is probably what the plan would be. Now it does appear that $14.99 is actually the cheapest price available. So if you're paying $14.99, I would say targeting $39.99. It's probably a heavier book though. You're looking at about a 40% ROI. And again, this would be conservative. I mean, the sales rank or the FBA buy box has been upwards of $50 before, but we can find better stuff. Volume research. Again, remember I told you if you ever see books with a very good sales rank kind of throughout the year, definitely prioritize running those through the counterfeit calculator. Looks like they want us to fill out our information to get a bunch of query or, to continue to look at it. But if this does come back, likely be counterfeit, obviously don't buy it. But otherwise, it looks pretty solid. $35 into, I would say $70 pretty easily. So, close to double for this book. So solid book there. I don't know if I'm not sure if it is highly likely to be counterfeit or not. So I'm just going to pass on it. You have a Stephen King book. This says first edition, first print. So you just want to make sure that it is going to be a first edition, first print, because that's what that actually says. So I would bet that whatever this current price is probably not a first edition, first print. But if it is, and if you can figure that out, then definitely you're in the money because you can pick it up for like 13 and sell for what, 35, 40. There's a really good website called StephenKingCollector.com. And so you could go to this website and you can go to first editions. You could find the Stephen King book, which is Needful Things. And you can figure out what makes it a first edition. So if you come down to Needful Things right there, it'll tell you first edition of 1.5 million copies. So actually the chance of it being a first edition is probably pretty high because it's 1.5 million copies. Front cover of a price of $24.95. And you have to see the numbers this in the copyright page. So I would say probably a pretty decent chance that if you bought that book, it is a first edition, but you'd want to verify that, which is going to be hard to do. Obviously, you could check on eBay if you wanted to, but then you're sourcing on eBay, so it's kind of just a lot of hoops to jump through. All right. This book looks to have done really well in August, and even though it sold well in January, it didn't really go up in used price. With that said, the buy box price did. So there definitely was a buy box mountain, but not necessarily for the used price. And so what I would say is go back in time and see, is that a pattern that we observed? Or is there normally a used price spike in January, or is there not? Does it only happen in August? Because in 2025, you can see no peak in January, but a peak there in August. So let's go back to the year prior, which is 2024. And I'll click here and let's see if we see the same thing. And so you'll notice, interestingly, again, no peak in January, but then a peak in August. So what does this tell us? It tells us that more than likely this book, even though it does sell in January, is going to sell much better in August. So we can go to 2023, and when you see it, same pattern. So what this tells us is we don't expect, if we were to buy this book at this price point, to sell it at $50. Although, again, if the buy box mechanics work, if the used buy box works the way it normally works, you probably would be able to sell it for $50 to $60. But the target should really be able to sell it in August for that price point, because that's when the used price goes up. So I would say buying this for probably $22 for this, $22.60, $22.59, and I'd say targeting like $55. I would say is pretty reasonable. So we have $22.59. I'd say targeting 55 is pretty reasonable. So you're looking at like a 50% ROI on that. Again, very possible you could sell it there in January, but the target is really sell in August, because that's when the used price actually goes up. And for a book like this, again, you could buy multiple copies. I'd say, however many copies, maybe 3 copies of this. Yeah, you could easily buy 3 copies. So I'd say 3 copies. Boom, leads list. And I want to make a note that here likely will sell Jan, but buy this for the AUG season. Like that. All right. Awesome. Let's keep it rolling. Star Wars book. Yeah, we haven't done any filtering. I'm just kind of looking at the stream right now. Okay, this one. That one. That one. All right. So once we get to this page, we will have looked through 100 books out of 4,000. So very few of the books. And again, I'm not necessarily passing up. You know, I'm not necessarily like the books that I'm passing aren't necessarily bad books. It's just that what I like to do when I source is just because there is a bunch of opportunity, really try to find the things that just really pop out to me. Right. And so you know, at the end of the day, that you have no ability to buy a fraction of all these books. So you don't need to buy all the books, right? So might as well spend your money as wisely as possible and pick up the books that you really do like. Java 6 makes sense. 46. That one. All right, let's look at this. Peterson references guide. So plenty of sales recently in the 90s to 100. It's now down to about 70, which is about 30% off discount, but it's I would consider on the low end we're 70 to about 120, so it's just not undervalued enough. The jobs to be done playbook. This is at I think $12. Looks like you could probably pretty easily sell it in the $30 range. So you're probably looking at like a $5 to $7 profit on a book like this. It does sell very well. And again, long term, its use price has been quite high. So there definitely is opportunity on a book like this. 12.16 is what you could buy it for. I would again target because 36 is in your. I'd probably target like $32 for it. So you're looking at about again $4 or $5 profit. But again, a book that you could probably buy multiple copies of. So lower ROI on it, but you've got 4 or 5 copies of that. I mean, you could probably buy all of them at that price. But again, I'll just say 2 copies. Some people also have metrics like, hey, I'm only gonna buy a book if I can make at least $10 profit on it, which is fine. You can go totally do that if you want. Some people have, I'm only gonna buy a book if I think I can make a 30% plus margin, a 50% margin. Some people only buy books if they think they can get 100% margin. Everyone can decide what it is that they want to do with their business, right? And so you don't have to buy any of these books if you don't want to. You could just simply watch me the whole time and not buy any of them. Okay, advanced assessment. Again, what I would say for this book, double check, counted for likelihood. So I haven't necessarily done that for every book, but given that we can sell it, given that it's not counted for likely, this looks really solid to me. Let's see if I can sell it. So I can sell it. It's right around, what is this? 26.63 plus 555. Oh, 26.63 plus 555. So we're looking at like 32.18. And my target on this would be like $75 for about a $20 profit. That's what I the used offer count is very similar to where it was last year. And we know that we're going to get quite a bit of demand in January. It's also a great book because it has not only a January season, it has a little bit of a May season and an August season. So it has 3 textbook seasons, not just one, which is pretty cool. And I also want to make sure that I save this over here. Later on today, we are doing the session 1 of the college textbook flipping masterclass. And that's one of the points I want to make is that, some college textbooks have a May season as well. So, yeah, target 75 is what I would say there. How many copies can we buy? I think just 1 copy. There's another copy at 28 plus 4. So there's another one at $32. Oh, yeah, it's the same price. So you can pick up 2 copies. And then you can see it shoots right back up to the 60s and 70s pretty fast. So, yeah, I would definitely buy 2 copies of that. Again, counterfeit likelihood, make sure it's not counterfeit likely. If it's not, then we're in that book. Okay, let's see. Essential cuisines of Mexico. So it looks to be a book that's normally priced around 20-ish dollars. The buy box price again can go crazy, go up into the 40s. So there's definitely a play to exploit the buy box in this book. But again, I don't like to teach people to do that because it's more of a risky business model. So I'm gonna pass. Introduction to software testing. So this is about $9. Current use price or current new price is 34. The whole year it's been very expensive. Long term, it's been a very expensive book. So again, a positive sign is, has the book ever been cheaper, or has the book ever been at a cheap price like it has been today? And if so, like for example, when it was there in January, what happened? Oh, shot right back up. What happened here in June? Got low. Oh, boom, shot right back up. August, shot back up, and now we're going to see a very similar pattern there. So 34 is again what Amazon's selling this for. Potentially they could go lower, they could go higher, they can go out of stock. You really don't know what's going to happen. It says only 7 left in stock, but it also says more on the way. So let's just run the numbers and see if it makes sense. 1277, again, a book with decent demand. Still what I'd consider a college textbook because of the demand in both January and in August. So right there and right there. So I would definitely say probably targeting like $29.99, which at $29.99 there's really not any profit to be had. So we're not going to add that. Corporate finance. This book just dropped in price down to 16. Let's take a look at it. See if it's still there. No. So this book's already gone. So somebody already bought this book on off from BookMine. But a great deal here. This dropped down to 16, probably plus shipping. So it's probably like $20 all in. But recent sales in the 60s, 70s. Again, target price is probably like 50 to $60 on a book like this. So it's already gone. No reason to look at it. Vegas Gold. I would bet that this is probably a heavier book just from looking at it. But recent sales in 30 to 40 range. It's now probably about $10 shipped. What I don't like is that it used to be priced pretty cheaply. And it could be just that, at a lower offer count. Like if you compare the offer count right around this period to the offer count here, it's much lower. And then now what you're noticing is the offer count starting to go back up. So for me, I'd pass on a book because of that. Okay, let's do some filtering. So we got a ton of awesome filters. If you want to look at specifically college textbooks, boom, you can click on the college only books and you will get mostly college books. It's mostly coded, right? I mean, it's kind of impossible to be perfect on exactly coding every book properly, but this will show you all the college books. Now you could also do the same thing for like high school books as well, or all year round books. It's kind of taking a moment here to load. All right. So these are a bunch of college books that you could potentially pick up. And again, some of them will be kind of mislabeled. Like this is a book about railroading, but here you go. You have a bunch of college books that you should definitely be looking at. And if you're wanting to look at, let's say, high school books, you could do the same thing. You could look at only high school books. You can see a couple of the high school books that we just recently saw from BookMine Mini. Like, for example, this one. This book looks really good right now. It's about $18. Stream Civilization. Let's take a look at this one. So this was selling, when the new price was in stock for about 60, and then when it was out of stock for much more than that. Now it's 18, so it really hasn't been much cheaper than that. But I would say targeting probably like 45 to 49.99 on a book like this. And again, this is a high school book, so 1461 plus $3.99 shipping. And I would target probably like 40, 48, 47.99. And how many copies can you buy there? 2 copies. So I'd buy both of those copies. Also has decent demand in January, so it's even possible you could sell it in January. But 1D2 and leads. All right. So again, just going really quickly through here. Again, not that any of these are bad. It's just anything that catches my eye. Lost this book. This is a really good example of a Christmas, college, seasonal book. It's a book about, I think they're called Hostess or Hostas. I could be wrong. I don't know. Hostess, but it's a book that in the offer count you can clearly see a pattern right around the same time every year. It's right around the beginning part of the year. And so we're coming up on that period. And you can see how in May this book's, even though the used price only got up to the mid 20s, which is about 2.5 times the price right now, the buy box was in the 40s. So let's see where we're at. We're at a very similar offer count today as we were same time last year. So you probably could expect a similar plan, but I would buy pretty much any copy that's under 10 bucks. And so it looks like there's three copies right around 10 bucks. So yeah, 622 plus 39 shipping. And I would target probably, for this book, again, the used price didn't necessarily go up a ton, but it's a book that, depending on the season, it can go up pretty high. So I'd probably would target like $37.99, and I'd buy all three copies. So boom, three copies beats. So one thing that you're probably noticing is that we've already spent almost $400, right? And it's been a little bit over an hour, maybe an hour and a half is probably what we're getting up to. So you can see how it gets very expensive. And again, that's if we just bought a single copy of every book. In reality, 7 times 28 is, well over 150 bucks. Or is that right? No, well, yeah, well over 150 bucks. So really, we're probably closer to a spend of maybe like 5 to 600 bucks. So there's really no shortage of deals. The reality is you should be spending the capital that you do have as wisely as possible. And so that might mean a couple things. Only targeting books that are going to make you at least $15 profit per book. That might be only target books that are going to make you at least 100% ROI, right? And so depending on how much capital you have, you're going to be more or less selective, right? And so somebody who's well capitalized, I would consider for an online book arbitrage seller, somebody who's well capitalized, meaning someone trying to do north of 500,000 in revenue per year, maybe up to $1 million, maybe a little bit over $1 million per year. They're probably looking to spend about $1,000 a day. So we've already spent probably close to about, is this again, $500 to $600 after all the multiple copies. And so we're getting there, right? I would say if we were to stop right here, and if I was your virtual assistant, and I was able to do this in an hour and a half, you'd run out of money, right? You wouldn't be able to pay me because I'd be like, all right, here's all these great deals, and so you'd have to figure out, well, which of these are you gonna actually pick up. But this is how crazy it is. I mean, it really, there's just so many books that you could be buying that are great books. Some of them you might have to wait for a little bit longer to sell. Some of them are maybe more long tail, some of them are lower ROI. But the thing is, the opportunity exists out there, and you can see it in the patterns. Like you can see with this book too. There's a pattern with this book every single year. I mean, it's pretty predictable, right? I mean, and so all you have to do is be willing to show up and do the work, put in the work, buy the books. So this is another high school book that was selling in the 70s. I actually did really well with this book. I think I sold up to 5 copies this year. And look, you can pick it up for about $26, which is a pretty great deal for this book right now. That was just selling for $65 to $70 at the lowest price just a few months ago. So, yeah, also another good book there. Let's go ahead and take a peek at it. 31.50 is what you can buy this for, and I want to say I was selling this for like 70 to 80 bucks is what I was selling it for in this season. So let's see, 31.50, and I would say again, conservatively, target price on this like 69.99, something like that. And how many copies? Multiple copies. I wouldn't buy a ton of copies, maybe 2 or 3 copies. The one thing is you do see that the offer count's a little bit higher this year. It's at 40. Last year is right around the 15 mark. So honestly, now seeing that the offer count is actually significantly higher, what I would do is track the book. So I'm already tracking it for under 25. 31 is obviously more than 25. So you might even change this to like 22, 23, but I'll track it for 25 when it hits that tracker, which more than likely it will, because over the next couple of months, it's probably going to continue to go down in price. I'll kind of come back and see what happens. Now, a couple of cool things about this book. You can actually see how there was a massive drop in offer count from 27 down to 9. More than likely, what happened right there is you had either a high school buy a bunch of copies or a wholesaler buy a bunch of copies. Um, and that happens with high school books. So it's cool there. Um, okay, there you go. Irina says that Jenny's first year line is highly likely to be counterfeit. Thank you for letting us know. So that's again a reminder to always make sure you put that through the counterfeit checker. Thank you, Irina. All right, let's see what else we got. Probably gonna look at a couple more and then we'll probably end it out here soon, just because I think you got plenty of deals to be looking through there. And so it looks like a great high school book as well. Okay, this is a high school book that looks to be super cheap right now. There is a newer edition of this book available. It's this an American government book for the AP course, but this was selling in the 60, 70, 80 range all throughout July, August, September. And then recently it's really eroded down in price. And this is one of the reasons why Victor and I say don't always aim for the top of the mountains, because imagine if you were somebody who looked at the previous year of this book and you're like, all right, previous mountain of this book was 140. You'll notice that the mountain didn't get to 140 this year. And so if you held out and had multiple copies available, then you'd been holding the bag, because after the season ended, now the price is down into the 20s, right? And so you're underwater on the book. So this particular book, what you see long term is the used offer count is going up. So you still do see the offer count go down in the season. It did happen this time, but it only got to about like 70. And so what we can expect to happen this next year is something probably very similar, where if I were to extrapolate to next year, it's probably going to look something like this. And so what that means is your mountain is going to continue to get smaller and smaller. So I do believe that this book will have another mountain, but I don't believe the mountain is going to get into the 60s and 70s. I think the mountain's probably for this book going to get into the 40s. So I do think that there's opportunity with this book, but honestly, the real opportunity of this book comes from the newest edition, which is going to be this one here. This one's about 80 bucks right now, and it was recently selling for the 120s. Likely this book will come down back in price. I'd say, you might be able to pick up some copies in the 60s and 70s, but yeah, selling it for right around 120 is going to leave you probably like a $25, $30 profit per copy. So I would definitely be on the lookout for this high school book going forward. All right, Solution Manual. So another high school book. Again, we did use the BookMine filter for high school. And so again, what you see with the used offer count here is this one is just kind of steadily climbing, not really going down much. This textbook season, it actually sold really well in May for some reason. And then the rest of the season was just meh. Wasn't that great. I mean, it's really cheap. I mean, it's only going to be like, what, $8 or $9 to buy it. But, and you may have seen this book cheaper in the past as well, but also at lower offer counts. So I'd probably pass on this book. But there's still probably some opportunity there. All right. So let's go ahead and reset back to normal here. And let's actually look based off of profit meter. So I'm going to use the profit meter and say anything that's 4 or higher. So 475 bucks. And so this is going to look at the most recent sales, and it's going to either say great or amazing. So for example, this book is priced at 35. The most recent sales were at 75. So half off, that's considered a great price. The reason why this book came up is because it was selling for 200. Now it's at 95. That's why it came up. But again, if you look at the rest of the year, it's kind of right around 95, and it's a seasonal book. This is actually a case study book, which Victor and I tend to try to steer people away from case study books because they can give you trouble if you're not well versed in the way that those work. That could be a whole masterclass in of itself. All right, so this book, The Splendid and Autographed, it's a signed copy, so obviously I want to make sure it's signed. But this has been selling on the low end 30, upwards of 50. It's now $7. I like that the offer count is actually very similar. I also like that the new price is actually still very high. So very high ceiling price. That looks good. What's interesting about this book is it has had periods of time where it's been expensive, like here. and then kind of like a random lull where it was cheap and then it went back up in price and then it was cheap again and then got really popular again. So I don't really know what's going on with this book, but the last 2 years of this book have been pretty solid on the data. So I would definitely be interested at this price point. And you're gonna want to make sure again that it is actually the signed copy because that's what the customer will expect. So definitely, if it's not signed, return it. For a book like this, I'd pick up maybe two, maybe three. I'd probably just say two copies, 2 to 3 copies. 9.69. Looks like I cannot sell it, but again, I might not be logged into Amazon right now, so maybe probably a decent chance I can sell it. But again, make sure you can sell the book before you buy it, right? And then I would say targeting like 35 is what I would do. So about 100% ROI. I'd say pick up 2 copies of this book, and boom, there's a lead right there. Alrighty. So what is that? Over 20 books. I would say easily, in profit. Again, there's multiple books, multiple copies of some books, but even if we bought a single copy of every book, potentially looking at about $250 in profit at these ROIs. And again, I would consider all of these to be pretty conservative estimates. I'd consider this to be probably closer to the lower end of a min max price. So, if I'm saying 32, I'd say probably the max price is closer to like 38. For a book I said 49.99, probably the max price is like 59.99. For a book that I said, 55, max price is probably like 69.99. So there's I would say definitely potentially more upside than downside on a lot of these books. So hopefully, you found that helpful. But yeah, that was me being your sourcing VA for about an hour and a half. So I didn't quite make it to 2 hours, but that's okay. As your virtual assistant today, I feel like I did enough work and got you enough leads there. So again, definitely sign up for BookMine Mini. It's free, 100% free. 50 book leads every 2 hours. You can find amazing deals there. Every quarter we do a BookMine Mini meetup as well, just to see how everyone is doing. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this almost 2 hour long sourcing session. I had a lot of fun, and I'll see everyone next time. Peace out, guys.